Hey guys, welcome to the Perfectly Wasted Podcast. I'm the host, DullOxide. Today is episode 47 on Anime Talk. You can find all the previous episodes on the Drinking Wisemen YouTube channel, along with my bi-weekly podcast, Brew the Truth, all the day-to-day photos and cosplay photos on my Instagram, at DullOxide. So first off today, I want to talk about an anime called All Out. It's a sports anime that is about rugby. And it was a little bit underwhelming. It kind of had I guess you would say the standard sports anime type start or intro kind of thing. You know, you get this kid that's never played before, and they kind of want him on the team because in this case they need extra players kind of thing. And he gets on the team and he ends up being relatively good, in this case at tackling, and then he goes to be like the spirit of the team and bring everybody up, you know, just kind of get them pumped. And that kind of is the standard fare for a lot of different sports anime, and it is a little bit overplayed, but also in this happens to be on a sport, rugby, that I feel like is not the best. You know, like I'm not really into a lot of sports or anything like that, but I can tell you, you know, all the, so far, volleyball anime, swimming anime, basketball anime, tennis anime, boxing animes that I've seen have been able to hook me at least to be interesting. Rugby, not knowing the sport at all, which never stops me from watching one of these, but not knowing the sport at all and then watching it and learning a little bit about the rules, it just seemed kind of boring, you know? So overall, the anime was enjoyable while I was watching it. I always binge watch everything that I watch. So I enjoyed it while I was watching it, but it just was kind of so standard for a sport anime that it wasn't really amazing to me. I did like that it was about something different. You know, we've been seeing a lot of different basketball anime, for instance, and baseball anime. So rugby, this is the only one that I know of that's on rugby, and I found that kind of interesting. I would have liked to seen it a little bit longer because realistically, they didn't get anywhere near where their goal was. They basically were able to play one of the teams that they wanted to play, and that was it. That was like the end of the series. It just ended. So I would have liked to seen a little bit more, or seen them get maybe a little closer to their overall goal, but I'm going to say that for now, this is kind of like if you're really into rugby, maybe watch it. If you're not really into rugby, then you could probably just pass this one up altogether. Next up is it wrong to try and pick up girls in a dungeon? Now, obviously, this is a little late because it's been out over a year here, but the second series of this, I guess you would call it, the spin-off, just came out and just finished up. Since I do like to complete things all together if I can, I watched the first season so that I can watch this second spin-off that's coming on here, which is from a different character's perspective of the first season. So I have to say I kind of went into this thinking it was going to be a little bit more kind of fan servicey than it was. And overall, I actually really enjoyed it. I didn't think it was going to be as interesting as it is, and it's kind of another one of those anime that you watch and you see it's going to be kind of like, all right, well, you know the main character is going to be OP. He's going to be super overpowered. And you've seen this in a couple things. You know, you see it in the Fate series anime. You see it in Sword Art Online, for instance. But this one, it kind of brings you in slowly and you get to know the character, and it's kind of endearing how he starts to grow. And the best part is that, like, he's not like a bad guy and he doesn't abuse his powers or anything like this. He's not ridiculously strong. You see him working hard to earn his strength. So overall, I would say that this is a really good series, especially if you like the types of anime that have to do with, you know, like video game perspectives, for instance. Obviously, there's a lot of traveling in dungeons in this. It's based off of a fantasy world where gods have come down to the earth, and essentially if you become part of their family, you're able to gain certain powers through them. And in this case, the main character is the only family of one particular goddess, and essentially it's about him trying to build up and become a stronger adventurer. It's a very entertaining series. I liked it a lot. It wasn't your standard into video game type fare, in my opinion. I would definitely recommend it if you do like fantasy worlds and things like this. It did have a lot of comedic aspect to it, but additionally, there was a little bit of a harem aspect. You could tell that a lot of the female characters kind of like the main male character. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and recommend this to you guys. I think that it's definitely worth a watch. As I said, if you like fantasy, if you like video game type stuff, then you're probably going to like this. It's pretty enjoyable. And I've watched a little bit of the spin-off series, and so far I've liked that a lot also. I'll probably have an episode about that here in the future once I've completely finished it. And here again, kind of like going with the video game type trend, this is a new anime that's actually about MOBA gaming. So it's kind of, I heard about it and I was kind of like, I don't know, this doesn't seem like it's going to be super interesting. But I'll tell you what, The King's Avatar actually, once you start watching it, is pretty fucking good. The basic story premise is kind of like the underdog premise here. You have a professional gamer who is forced to retire, and as he's forced to retire, he kind of decides that he still loves the game and decides to still continue playing and start anew on the new server that's launching essentially the day that he was fired, or forced to retire, if you will. And it's of him basically going through and meeting new people inside of the game and trying new things in the game, and it's very, very interesting. And the entire anime is based around, like I said, it's kind of like the MOBA scene. So if you're into League of Legends or any professional gaming scene that's like League of Legends or, you know, Dota 2 or HOTS or any of those kind of thing, you're really going to like this, because it does have certain aspects of that in it. Now, interestingly, the game that they play inside of this anime is a mixture of an MMO and a MOBA, so it's got both aspects to it. This is why I found it like kind of interesting. The art in the anime was really good. I really did enjoy it. The Chinese made it kind of hard to follow because the subbing groups that were able to sub it and release it, there's not like a whole lot of diversity. In fact, you can't really find most of the episodes from just one singular subbing group, so that's kind of a bummer. But I will say that it was highly entertaining, as I do enjoy MOBAs and I do enjoy MMOs, and the aspect that I really enjoyed here is that the main character basically was forced to retire because they were saying he was getting too old, and I've already done an episode on, you know, pro gaming scene and that you're basically never too old to game, and this essentially backs it up, which kind of made me feel a little bit good about it. But also I understand it's not quite realistic because it is an anime. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this is a highly recommend, especially if you like games, basically. If you like the MOBA scene or the MMO scene, then this is really going to relate to you. It's not so much like them in the game acting as themselves. There's a lot of they refer a lot to actions per minute in the game, which is really cool. If you know a lot about, you know, MOBA and stuff like that, then you know that that's a pretty important fucking thing. And they refer a lot to, like, basically the metagame, you know, so check it out. Definitely worth watching. Let me know what you think once you do check it out. This last one here is actually called Akashic Record of Bastard Magic Instructor, and I actually watched this because I saw a lot of, like, clips from it looking around on, like, Instagram and places on the internet, so it looked kind of funny to me. And this is kind of like, I'm going to say that this is a lot of fan service inside of this. I'd say out of the 4 anime that I talked about here, this has the most fan service in it. And it was kind of a little bit too much, but I did like the story somewhat. It was pretty interesting. You know, you have this guy that essentially has no credentials going in to be a teacher, a magic instructor, and they all kind of think he's a bum, and he essentially proves them wrong and starts to prove his worth. Now, the majority of the episodes inside of this first season are essentially just kind of like giving you backstory into the main character, and kind of like it continuously hints towards, you know, like, oh, he's a badass, and then again it just reconfirms, oh, he's a badass, and you learn a little bit more and more and more about him as it goes. This is kind of like standard fare, where you have this main character who no one really knows anything about, who just ends up being like super, essentially. And I kind of liked it, and I also kind of hated it at the same time. So it was a little bit of a weird feel to it. Like, I felt like there were a lot of standard tropes that just have been overplayed inside of this, but it wasn't so boring that I just didn't want to watch it anymore. So I'm going to go with, on this one, maybe check it out. Mostly if you do like, you know, kind of like magic type anime where you have just magic being thrown around, maybe magical duels, things like this, then you might like this. If you like that coupled with fan service, then you're probably going to love this. Overall, I'm going to put this kind of middle of the road. It wasn't terrible. I probably wouldn't watch it again, but it's definitely not going to go on my highly recommended. Overall, for this entire episode, I'm going to say the highly recommends for this is definitely King's Avatar and Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon. Those two are definitely watches in my opinion, so if you get a chance, go ahead and check those out. Let me know what you think. And if you have any anime that you want to recommend to me that I might check out, if they're older anime, that's okay. I love watching completed stuff. Please do send me a direct message or comment on this episode. Please let me know what you think if you have opinions on these episodes also. Thanks again for joining us. That was 10 minutes perfectly wasted.